We're both bitten by a tick that was infected.
Not necessarily the same tick?
Not necessarily, no.
And, wow. So, well, that gets me to a lot of questions. One, what have you done with your property?
but had it sprayed.
Yeah, it's sprayed, okay. But, well, we'll follow up on that in a moment, too, about what you can do to prevent it and how you should respond to things. But I want to pick up on you, Ann. So now you're in this situation where you're not feeling well. Your dog has not been feeling well. Did you put this together at all?
Not initially. Because Saturday I was in bed all day. Sunday I woke up, I did the same thing. I never got up. And by Monday I thought, oh, there's something really wrong. I have to go to the hospital. Because this wasn't a typical virus where your fever would come down. I had high fever and it just wouldn't come down. It was between like 101 and 104. So on Monday, Memorial Day, I went to Abington. And when I got there, then I decided I better stay here.
Well, we're going to get some tips on how to stay healthy before we continue this conversation, because we do want people to be able to understand that it's generally recommended that you treat your pets monthly with some form of anti-tick medication, anti-flea medication. And check your pets daily if you can, and with some pets that's a little tough depending on how their hair is, but you should try to do it. Wear light colored clothing when you're outside and tuck your pants in if you're doing a lot of yard work. Apply DEET containing insecticide containing DEET. Remove ticks as soon as possible, and of course if you're sick, go seek help as soon as we can. I want to go over some of those in the minutes that we have ahead, but let's pick up now on where you are. So you're really feeling badly and you're seeking help. Now, did you go to your doctor?
Originally I called my doctor and I was referred to his referral that day. So I saw him and he suggested I go to the hospital and have some tests taken, and then he thought I could go home that day. So by the time I drove to the hospital, which was 5 minutes from his office, I felt so bad that when I got in there I needed to lay down. So after I was there a few minutes, one of the nurses said, you should probably be admitted if you feel so poorly. And I thought, yeah, there's no way I can go home now. So that's what happened.
So at this stage, and this is typical, the doctor doesn't really know what you have, because you have a lot of symptoms that can be applied to a lot of different things.
Absolutely.
So, but now you're in the hospital and the hospital's going, well, unless she's faking, she's probably pretty sick. So we'll see what happens. Now, when did you come in and start putting two and two together?
Well, it was over the weekend, so I wasn't in the hospital, but I was checking in on Lucy through our system to see how she was doing, and I noticed that that Ann hadn't come to visit, which I thought was a little unusual because I knew you were quite attached to Lucy. And then when I came back into the hospital at the beginning of the next week, I got a message that Lucy was going to be discharged to Ann's son because Ann was sick herself and in the hospital. And that's when I thought, well, that's kind of strange. You know, I think that this dog has an infectious disease. I don't know for certain at this point, but now her owner is sick, who had looked perfectly healthy when she came in for the appointment a couple days before. So I said something to Ann's son. I said, you know, I don't want to pry, but what's wrong with Ann? And he said, oh, I don't know, she has a fever, which had been a big, important part of Lucy's illness. So I said, make sure that you tell Ann's physician at the hospital that Lucy was sick as well. And
did the physicians or the staff at the hospital say, oh, okay, we'll test you for that?
They knew when I was admitted originally, I mentioned that my dog had been sick. Was there any relation? Could there be any connection? Initially, they didn't think so.
Yeah, it's
they
unusual.
said, no, you wouldn't pick anything up from her.
From a dog, yeah, necessarily. But the other ticks on the property that could be that way probably wasn't going through their head at that point because they didn't know what you had.
Exactly.
So at some point, though, they had to decide what to treat you with or had to test you and get results. How did that transpire?
Well, sort of, I don't remember everything when I was in hospital, but there was, when I first came in, they told me, they saw a rash on me after I had been admitted that day. And I said, oh, that rash is new. That just developed. So after that, I guess they just started to test for tick. Did they test? I think they did start to test for infections first.
Well, I want to pick up on this and then see how the two of you recovered and what lessons we can learn from this and get some other advice from Dr. Adler here. More on you and your pet's health on InFocus in a moment on my PHL 17. Back on In Focus as we talk about the health of your dog or cat and how your companion may be a sentinel for your health. With me are Dr. Jennifer Adler of the Center for Animal Referral and Emergency Services, or CARES, in Langhorne, and Ann Kane and her friend Lucy. Hey Lucy, you're doing great. And Lucy's feeling fine now, Doc?
Yeah, Lucy's made a complete recovery.
Good. Now, Jennifer, we were hearing about Ann's story, and in the hospital, I guess she was so ill she was a little out of it and doesn't remember every single thing. You know this connection pretty well. What transpired after those first few hours in the hospital? So
actually, the way that I know the story is that Ann was in the hospital. She was admitted. I had, mentioned something to her son, and her son had gone back to the hospital and mentioned something to her physician. Mm-hmm. And the next day I came into work and I got a phone call from her physician at Abington Hospital who wanted to talk about the case and what Lucy had been sick with, her signs, that kind of thing. So at that point we kind of just compared notes. Basically, I said, this is what went on with Lucy, these are my suspicions, this is what her lab work looked like. And her physician did the same thing on the other side, and we actually found that they had a lot of similarities. So
is that common, that dogs or cats will have symptoms of an illness and a similar illness will present the same way in a human?
It's a little unusual. I think veterinarians are very open to the possibility of that because we are aware of zoonotic diseases or diseases that could be spread from a pet to an owner because there's a lot of implications when a person gets sick. But it is unusual for us to actually find that and to have that conversation with a physician and a veterinarian.
So all of a sudden the light bulbs go off over everybody's head, and how aggressively do you get treated then? I mean, do they all over you with putting antibiotics in you?
Well, that was originally, they were all over because they didn't know what I had. And I was treated for Rocky Mountain, even though they didn't know what I had. Sure. And I had heavy doses of antibiotics.
How long did it take for you to recover?
Well, I actually just returned to work 2 weeks ago.
Wow, the whole summer?
Yeah, I lost my summer.
Wow. I mean, so how long were you in the hospital?
I was in the hospital. I was in Abington for 2 weeks, and then I went to rehab. And
what did you have to rehab? What was not working right?
Oh, well, my vision was affected, my hearing was affected, my nervous system.
So Lucy's vision was affected, your vision was affected, your nervous system, in what way?
Well, I was on a ventilator for a few days.
Oh my.
And when I woke up from that, when I started to write, I just had no control over my hands writing. So that's when I noticed. That happens to me on bills, but I don't think it's a tip. Yeah. No, so wow, so that took a while to come back because you seem perfect. Now I feel much, much better. But my balance was off. I had a lot of dizziness, and I just was really, really tired, and just didn't feel. I just couldn't do a lot. My heart was racing. I had all kinds of different things affected. So after physical therapy, I'm doing very well.
Wow. And so there are a number of lessons, I guess, in all this. One is listen to your pet and listen to your veterinarian and have a good conversation with your personal physician about everything you feel and everything going on around you. But in terms of all these tick-borne illnesses now, how alarmed should we be? Is this still a rarity around here about Rocky Mountain?
Yeah, Rocky Mountain is extremely rare, particularly in people. We see it in pets with somewhat frequency. I think just because they're more often exposed to ticks. But it's still pretty uncommon. Since I've been an internist in the Philadelphia area, I think I've treated probably a handful of cases that I was convinced in the past 5 years.
Do dogs get more Lyme disease than they do Rocky Mountain?
Yeah, Lyme is much more common in the tick population in this area. The vast majority of dogs who are exposed to Lyme never get sick from it. I think we kind of overdiagnose that a little bit. People are much more susceptible, I think.
Now, had you been treating Lucy with anything? Had you been putting anything on her that was
for ticks?
Yeah. So that didn't work.
The one,
on her.
I hadn't been using what I originally used.
Yeah, we don't need branding.
Right, I used something different.
Oh.
But I just spoke with Jennifer today, and she said a tick collar is the best thing.